This is my Paragon lore theory old era video. Um, it's just gonna be uh, me explaining my theories on the Paragon lore, and I mean most of this is just me making assumptions. The only first-hand data that we can really use to figure out the lore of Paragon is through the heroes themselves, by looking at the heroes, looking at their abilities, their skins, their general personality, and their background. Those are pretty much the only first-hand sources of data that we really have on the lore here in Paragon. Aside from that, I have split up the cast into two basic eras. This video is going to be dedicated to the cast that I believe reside in the old era, and the other video that I'm going to make is going to be characters that reside in the space era. And how do you tell which one is which? Well, like I said before, it's just through a mix of looking at the characters themselves, looking at their skins, and looking at their backgrounds, right? So the old era cast, I believe, they're all living on the same planet. They are not necessarily on the same continent. More than likely, they're on different, they're from different parts of the world, just from the same world, from that one planet. As if they were all from Earth, for example, or actually, let's just probably call it Planet Paragon, really. um, so the heroes are as follows: the old era Paragon heroes. They're Countess, Greystone, Sparrow, Grux, Chimera, Kwang, Narbash, Rampage, Sevrog, and Faye. These are all the heroes that, in my opinion, are from the old era. Meaning, what does old era mean? Well, it means that they're from like a Dungeons and Dragons type of era, a Game of Thrones type of era, a Lord of the Rings type of era, where it's castles and knights and kings and queens and magic and beasts and vampires, things like that. And there's nothing else to prove that except from just looking at the characters themselves, right? So if we see Countess here, there's obviously a lot of vampire type uh, lore with her. You can read it here in the background, and one of the main reasons why I put her with the old era is because she's claiming to be nobility. And what do we associate with nobility, right? Well, obviously princes and princesses and kings and queens. So that fits perfectly with the whole with that era. If we have a planet here that the main kind of technological advances are basically still just swords and spears and the like, then she would fit right there. Um, I believe that she is well. It says right here that none have traveled to her lands, right? So she's from her own continent, maybe even her own country, right? And, and it's hidden. It's a hidden land where only those that the people who are related to countess want to share find out about, right? You know, the only way you know that people like countess exist is if you've met them. Other than that, you will have no reason to believe that they live. But I do believe that they are part of a civilization. She is obviously part of the nobility, um, and I mean, we see. Look at some of her. She has a carnival skin. Obviously, like these are people that have holidays and celebrations and things like that. Maybe even some ties in with Egyptians or something like that. I mean, and not even necessarily Egyptians like from Earth, but just Egyptians in the sense of that level of civilization. Like they have a good amount of math and science and technology. Obviously, they can make swords. They have some type of um, magical or paranormal as seen through the countess, or maybe that's part of just the nobility. Maybe it's just the nobility that has these paranormal abilities. But that's why I believe she's part of the old world, the old era. Which brings us over to Greystone, right? Well, I mean, obviously he is a knight. I mean, classic shield and sword knight. there's no, there's no debating that. Um, he also he also is one of the few characters that has an actual first-hand information that links him to one of the other characters. He has imprisoned Sparrow many times, which by necessity dictates that Sparrow must also be part of the 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 old era. But unlike Countess, Greystone, I believe, is part of a more prominent civilization on the planet. He is known. I'm pretty sure he's known. He also has some he has some powers, obviously. I mean, jumping really far isn't really a power, but him dying and coming back, that's a power. He turns to stone and then comes back. Yeah, okay, that's a pretty cool power. I mean, we even kind of get to see the entire like this is, I believe, like their casual walking around gear, and then when they go into war, I believe this is when they bring out the helmets. Like he's just part of, he may be a commander, he may not be a commander. I mean, he does have a bit of an iffy background here, where he was basically a chicken growing up, but he probably lost a wife or a daughter or something like that, and that's probably who the lock of hair belongs to. That's in his boot. He just keeps it around to remind himself why he's fighting. Why he doesn't give up. So he's probably just one of the royal knights. He's probably just in a part of the world that is run by a kingdom, and he's part of that troop. Which means that Sparrow, we go to Sparrow right quick. Which means since she has been imprisoned by him, even though she's dressed really nicely, it it kind of dictates that she's a criminal. She has to be an outlaw. If we take it to be fact that Greystone is a knight and he has done imprisoned, that means that she has done things to warrant being imprisoned. I mean, and she might not be a bad person per se, but she might be um, a smaller opposing faction, a smaller kingdom, that they have skirmishes with. Maybe Greystone's kingdom and Sparrow's kingdom have skirmishes with each other. Um, but she's an outlaw. She has been imprisoned many times. You need to do something to be in prison. So she I mean, her skins don't really tell us much about that. Aside, she just has like for a criminal, she dresses pretty freaking nicely. It would have been cool that if she had like like a hoodie type of ragged look. That would kind of make more sense to me. But That kind of rounds out the kingdom or civilization part of the old era, right? The other heroes that I mentioned are either they reside in nature, or they might be part of a civilization, but that isn't as advanced as one with kings and queens would be. For example, Grux. I believe that he is also on the same planet as the previously mentioned heroes. It's just that he's probably just part of a beast tribe. Um, he's obviously part of a tribe. It says it in his background. He has crushed the skull of every challenger in his tribe. You know, he has a grandmother. So he the he's part of a civilization just not as advanced as the ones that Greystone Sparrow and Countess belong to. They still have stone weapons as opposed to metal or iron weapons. You know that Countess has, for example. Um, you know their gear is very primitive, right? Um, but they're a strong force. They're probably the type of um, force that other kingdoms, even though they're seen as primitive, they don't want to mess around with them just because they do have that raw power. You know, it's like it doesn't matter if they're primitive. This stuff still hurts. You know, getting bashed with one of these big ass sticks still hurts. So they try not to mess around with them too much, or just avoid it altogether if possible. Now we have here the I mean, most of his skins kind of reinforce this idea, right? That they're just a primitive type of beast tribe type of people, that would also inhabit the same place that, Countess and Gray and Sparrow do, you know. But all aside for the Ruby Scarab, um, this screams space tech, right? I mean, you even have here some type of visors with a little bit of light on them to help him see. So this could mean, well, obviously all the heroes mate on the legacy map. They're all going to be on Monolith, right? So what I'm guessing is that his origin is the same planet as the old era heroes are, but because of the tournament or the contest that is Legacy and Monolith, there's some interconnections the uh, with the space age heroes, and this skin kind of shows that he still has his old like a couple of these bone things here, but he gets armor and his weapons get upgraded. That just shows an understanding that my gear isn't as effective as it can be, and some of these people from the future basically can help me out be a more effective warrior, which is what this whole skin tells me about him. But we're still going to put him with the old era heroes because that's kind of his default. Next up is Chimera. Again, real simple reasons why. Obviously, he's just like Grux. He's very basic. He's wearing pelts and stuff like that. A bit of lore that we see here is that he has been worshipped as a god, and Grux's tribe also, in his background, says that he seeks the forgiveness of his god. So it's very possible that Chimera is one of the gods that Grux thinks he has to seek forgiveness from. This is kind of also reinforced by this skin. This is a pelt from one of the members of a Grux tribe, right? You know, it might not be anybody related to Grux, but it probably might not be Granny Grux. I don't think it's Granny Grux, but it's a Grux skin. It's not Grux himself, but it is somebody from a similar from a Grux tribe. You know, but we also see here some of the other creatures that dwell in Paragon. You know, in the old era, we have some white tigers. You know, we have some sun tigers. We have some moon vipers. Um, these are all pretty big creatures as well, as he's able to pretty much wear the entire pelt of the creature and cover his whole. I mean, not his whole body, but you know, he made pants and an entire headpiece hoodie type situation from him. So these are not small creatures. You know, probably around the same size as Grux. Um, he's probably. It says here that he's been in the jungle since the age 13. So what probably happened was that he was probably part of the civilizations from that, you know, that Greystone or Sparrow are from. But maybe on some type of caravan, they he was lost. You know, maybe they got attacked by any one of these beasts. You know, by some tigers or vipers, or maybe even the Grux tribe attacked them, and he fled into the jungle and's been there ever since, and has adapted to be able to live in that environment. Um, Next up, another one. It might be a little bit weird, kind of like the same thing with the Ruby Scarab skin with Grux, but I'm gonna put Quang here. Um, I'm gonna put him here, but kind of in the same boat as the Countess, not from the same location, but from a faraway land, basically. You know, somewhere where they have their own customs and practices, and have come to the conclusion of this. Basically, he's showing off. You know, he has some Bleach-like lore. You know, where his swords have names, so that's kind of interesting. So he has this whole samurai thing going on, right? And, I mean, aside from that, he obviously also has some type of magic. Um, it could be magic or it could be tech. You know, it could his lightning could very well be just part of his armor. We don't know. I'm gonna assume that it is magic because of his affinities. It's just, you know, corruption and light. Um, Corruption and order, I should say. But yeah, I'm gonna put him like kind of in the same boat as Countess in that they're part of the same planet, but they're just in a different continent somewhere where they don't see a lot of interaction, or the only chance they see is like when they're trading or something like that. Um, Moving on, we have Narbash over here. Um, Again, same situation. He's on the same planet, just kind of him and his people have their own area. You know, they have their own continent, their own civilization. You know, and yeah, I mean, he is really fat. God man, it's not just the fat; it's just over the drum and shit. That's nasty. That must hurt after a while. Um, but yeah, same boat, same exact boat. We see the abilities here that he might be the oldest part of the oldest civilization on that planet, because just because this is the only type of background that says about ancient sculptures have been found that look just like him. So which means that his people haven't really evolved at all or that much. You know, there's no need to evolve if you have everything you need in order to survive on in your environment. So probably one of the oldest. Him and his tribe are probably one of the oldest civilizations, and they're probably a little bit more advanced than Grux's tribe, but probably not as advanced as Greystone Sparrow or the Countess's lands. Um, Next up here we have Rampage. Um, it's interesting because you would think that he's just a rampaging beast, but he says right here he's a gifted storyteller and he enjoys camping. Um, that puts his level of intellect, or his people's level of intellect, at least on par with that of Narbash. You know, because you're telling stories, you're camping out. Um, Most likely you have music, just like Narbash does. You know, so the only thing that might put him outside of the old era and maybe into Space Age era is his pants. It looks, but I mean, this could very well just be bronze plating on his pants, so it's very doable for like you know, the kings and queens, knights era to make this type of thing. Um, he might also probably has gotten into some trouble because, as we can see, he's been imprisoned. How do we see he's been in prison? Well, he has a chain thing here. Let's see if we can make him show it off a little bit. Yeah, you see, he definitely broke free. You know, he got underestimated, as rampages tend to get. But I would say that because the only other hero where, I mean, us all the only other, you know, old era hero that has done some imprisoning is Greystone, you know, imprisoning Sparrow. I'm gonna say that Rampage might have been captured by the kingdom that Greystone belongs to, and, like, you know, put as a type of beast or something like that. Then we have Sevarog, putting him in the old era as well, simply because he is like, he looks like a wraith. Like, he's a wraith. You know, and even probably more secluded than the Countess peoples are. I'm pretty sure he's the one of a kind. You know, he's just him. You know, doesn't sleep, doesn't do anything except wait in the darkness, and is looking forward to dying, or at least passing on to the next life. So he's probably, you know, if Narbash is the oldest civilization, then this person is probably even, you know, from the same time as that, or maybe even older than that, you know, because he has like this whole death motif going on. So it's very possible that he's kind of like, you know, from that abandoned kingdom long ago, you know. You know, that none of the other civilizations, like Huang civilizations or Countess civilization or the Greystone civilization or even the Grux civilization, even bother exploring or fear, you know, or fear going over there, because they know that, you know, there's a walking embodiment of death there. um, you know, and that's kind of like super mysticism as well, which lends as well to the Fae being from that same area. You know, if Sevarog is death to everything, Fae is probably life to nature, and death to creatures. Why she's death to creatures is simply because of this. Her background just says that she's, the purpose of all living things is to die and feed the land. So she's definitely like a forest nymph, like a forest fairy, Tinkerbell, basically. I mean, probably only dwells in the forest. Her loves all her children probably is referring to plants. It's probably just, you know, kind of like poison ivy. Just she makes things grow, and she, you know, more than likely is a little bit kinder to heroes like Rampage, maybe even Grux, Chimera probably as well, because they're, you know, especially Chimera, because he isn't part of a tribe. He is one of a kind person that has some nature powers entwined into him that have helped him survive. You know, he can tap into the essence of the creatures that he has killed. You know, which allow him to unleash and call and etc., and things like that. So those are all of the old era heroes. Um, yeah, I think they all share the same planet. Um, they just probably are all, like I said, like I split it up, part of different eras. Not eras, but just part of different locations on the planet. You know, part of different continents, all different, locations. Maybe the Beast Tribe from the east, and the Northern Kingdoms, and the Western continents and shit like that. And the abandoned blah blah blah. You can fill in the gaps yourself. I mean, the only other person that I think might be part of the old era, but I'm not too sure about, is Feng Mao here. But the more I think about it, the more I kind of do want to put him in the old era, simply because I mean, aside from his gear that kind of does look space agey, it could very well also be just really good iron workers, right? Because he has here some of the same type of characteristics that Kwang has, right? Also, to hint that he is still part of that old school, that old era, is that he ranks like a village. There's not that much room for villages out in space. you know, um, he's, there's still, his parents worship Jambaka, so it's still a religious type of locale. So I would also put Fang Mao in the old era. We have here like these crystals on his weapon, which Feng Mao kind of has on his gauntlets as well. We go back and look at Kwang here. See, he has some crystals as well, so they might be from neighboring areas, right, where they evolved to use these crystals, infused with their weapons and their armor to give them an advantage in combat. Um, so Feng Mao probably same, part of the old era crew, and also probably close to Kwang's area. They probably not from the same area, but probably from neighboring continents, as it were. Um, Plus, he's smoking a pipe. Like, that just screams like old sage type of Chinese nonsense. So yeah, that's the old era breakdown for the Paragon heroes. Everybody that I didn't mention is going to be from the Space Age era, which I'll do a breakdown of that some other time. Alrighty, thank you. Bye bye.